Good morning. Thank you all for joining us. We don't do this that often on updating investigations, and this is I think a success story, and I wanted to acknowledge some assistance we had and acknowledge the fine work of our Criminal Investigations Division. Right now we're in the process of charging Ivan Kenya Patterson with the murder of Timothy Gentry. Mr. Gentry was murdered in the 1200 block of Beaufort Street on August 28, 2015. Mr. Gentry was shot and killed while standing beside his vehicle, and that's in the Earlwood neighborhood. The police department responded to the area, located Mr. Gentry fatally shot, and we located one spent shell casing and very little evidence. It happened late at night. Nobody was around. We had very limited information to go on. An autopsy was conducted subsequent to the shooting, and a 9mm projectile was recovered from Mr. Gentry. The projectile and the spent casing was submitted to the State Law Enforcement Division lab for analysis, and the analysis determined that a SCCY 9mm semi-automatic pistol was used. Just a few days later, on August 1st, 2015, Amanda Harrell, Harrell, was robbed at gunpoint while walking with a friend in the MLK, or near MLK Park. While we were investigating that call for service, Officer Walker was confronted by an armed suspect nearby, which turned out to be the suspect in the robbery. When he was confronted by the suspect fired on Officer Walker, and if you recall, Officer Walker returned fire, and we had an officer-involved shooting. That suspect fled the shooting scene and, I guess for lack of a better word, barricaded himself on top of a rooftop in a nearby business, and after several hours of a standoff, we were able to safely take him into custody. When we took him into custody, he was found to be in possession of an SCCY 9mm pistol. Other evidence found when he was arrested led detectives to 1505 Garden Plaza, and a search warrant was executed at that location. As a result of the search warrant, a box that contained an SCCY pistol was located, meaning the box that it would be packaged in when you purchased it, along with ammunition consistent with what was used in the homicide. ATF conducted an emergency e-trace, and it was determined that the weapon was purchased at Decker Jewelry and Pawn in Richland County. The paperwork also indicated that the purchaser was a Willette Wilson. SLED again analyzed the pistol and the shell casings that were recovered during this incident with Officer or Corporal Walker, and the analysis determined that that weapon was the same weapon that was used in the Beaufort Street murder. Ms. Wilson was interviewed and confessed to purchasing the firearm. She was this investigation was done in cooperation with the Sheriff's Department. As a result of that investigation, she was charged with unlawful and illegal transfer of a firearm. And after consultation with the Fifth Circuit Solicitor, authorization was given for charging Patterson with murder, possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime, possession of a firearm or ammunition by a person convicted of a violent felony. He's also, as I mentioned, he's in jail right now under charges of armed robbery, kidnapping, possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime, and the attempted murder of Corporal Chad Walker. I asked these gentlemen to join me. Obviously, you know Sheriff Lott. This is Christopher Hyman. He's the SAC with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosive. And John Bishop's the captain over the Midlands area with the State Law Enforcement Division. And you hear me say it all the time. I'm a big proponent of collaboration, and I think this is a case that speaks volumes of collaboration. I also think it speaks volumes for, and I can't say enough about our criminal investigations division and their tenacity and leaving no stone unturned in a case that, you know, had very little to go on initially. And Investigator Emmett Gilliam and Sergeant Pegram, just a great job. Thank you for your hard work and everybody that assisted on this. But again, this is how you get the job done. And you know, this victim was truly an innocent victim. He was arriving home, simply walking to his house, and was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And this crime was perpetrated by a violent predator that was, you know, in our community, and is not going to perpetrate a crime anymore in our community. Would you all like to say anything?
One thing Chief Holbrook has been big on since day one he walked in here as the police chief is working with people. He immediately reached out to me. We've been working very closely, but sometimes we have to get our state and federal partners involved in solving these crimes, and that's what happened in this case. It started with the city, get the county involved with the sheriff's department, then you have ATF, and you have SLED. That's what solves these crimes. It's not just one agency trying to do it by themselves. When we get all of us together with all the capabilities and expertise that we have, the results are going to be what you have today. You know, it took forensics, it took tracing, it took charging people on a smaller crime to get information, and the results is the arrest of someone that's been plaguing our community and got out here and killed someone, and now we can bring some closure to the families and to the community. The community wants to know what happened, who did it, why did it happen. We might not be able to answer why, but we definitely know who did it and who's going to be prosecuted for it. But again, just a great example of everybody working together.
Thank you, Sheriff. And again, thank you all for joining us. I appreciate the Earlwood community. Mr. Davis, thank you for being here as well, Councilman Davis. You know, the Earlwood community, they really stood behind us during this investigation when we were telling them that we were following some strong leads. You know, of course, the concern anytime you have a violent crime, or really any crime for that matter, is do we have somebody continuing to run around in our neighborhood victimizing folks? And they relied on us to assure them that this was a random case, and that we did not feel like that we had a perpetrator running around in the neighborhood that was going to reoffend. We felt like we knew we had the person in custody, and that we just had to make a case, which is what we did. So I think we talk about relationships all the time, and trust in law enforcement, and again, in my opinion, that relationship building and that trust that's there with our relationships, our strong relationships with our neighborhood organizations, paid dividends in this case too, and allowed our investigators to do their job. But thank you all for being here.